Hello, and welcome to BlackHoles&Books, where we read and we do whatever other little projects I feel like doing, but mostly read. Today, or more like this week, we're going to be reading some books by Andy Weir. So we have The Martian, Project Hail Mary, and Artemis. So, full disclosure, I have started Project Hail Mary and The Martian before, but I had borrowed them off Libby and I got busy and I wasn't able to finish them before they returned. So I think I've gotten maybe halfway through both of these. I haven't really checked in the physical book because I'm scared of accidentally giving myself spoilers, especially with this one, because I have no idea how it ends. But today and this week and this weekend, we're going to be trying to get through all three of these books. Why I think before I couldn't read a single one in 2 weeks, I can suddenly do 3 books in a week. I don't know, but we're just going with it. So I know The Martian is Andy Weir's first book, and thus I feel like on some level I should start with this one. I don't really want to. I just want to start with Project Hail Mary because I don't know, I just feel like it. So we're going to start with this one probably. This one, it is about this guy. His name's Ryland Grace, and he wakes up from a coma and he has no idea who he is. And so the story is kind of going through, he's regaining his memories and realizing why he is where he is. I don't want to give a ton of spoilers, but he's in space. So him realizing that he's in space and then also trying to figure out why he's in space. So that's Project Hail Mary. And then next we'll probably do The Martian. This one is really fun. So this is Andy Weir's first book. It's about an astronaut named Mark who he goes to Mars with a crew of people, and they're supposed to be there for, I forget how long, a few years, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, for a while, a good while. But unfortunately, a sandstorm happens that threatens their equipment in a way that if it damages it, then they'd be stranded on Mars. So the crew hightails it out of there, and Mark gets hit with some shrapnel during the storm, and they think he dies. But then he wakes up a day after they've left, and he's like, oh, gosh darn it, I'm still alive. I'm probably going to die anyway. So anyway, this book is his survival story of trying to survive on Mars and get back home. And then we have our last book. This one I know the least about because I haven't read any of it before. So I'm just going to read the back, which says, Jasmine Bashara never signed up to be a hero. She just wanted to be rich. Honestly, same girl. Not crazy, eccentric billionaire rich, like many of the visitors to her hometown of Artemis, humanity's first and only lunar colony, just rich enough to move out of her coffin-sized apartment and eat something better than flavored algae. Rich enough to pay off the debt she's owed for a long time. So when a chance at a huge store finally comes her way, Jazz can't say no, but engineering the perfect crime is just the start of her problems, because her little heist is about to land her in the middle of a conspiracy to control Artemis itself. Trapped between competing forces, pursued by a killer and the law alike, she'll have to hatch a truly spectacular scheme to have a chance at staying alive and saving her city. Jazz is no hero, but she's a very good criminal. That'll have to do. So now you know as much as I do about this book. Seems really good. I mean, it's a space heist, so what's not to love about it? Anyway, we will be reading these. I probably won't start reading right now. Probably later this afternoon, evening, just since I have a class that I need to finish some stuff up for before I can be irresponsible and just read for the rest of the day. So I will give you updates as I start reading. Okay, I just wanted to give a quick update on Project Hail Mary. I am on page 55, I want to say. Yeah, so page 55. We have Ryland is kind of gaining his memories back. He's kind of figuring stuff out. But anyway, one of the things that really sticks out to me about Andy Weir and the way he writes is that you can tell he knows the science, which I really appreciate. I think I like having the details and kind of proof that Andy knows what he's writing about on some level. And so one of the things is like, so he talks about like the scientific equipment that gets used, and he talks about all these equations and things like that. But anyway, in one part of the book, he's kind of realized that like gravity's a little off on the spaceship because he doesn't know he's on a spaceship yet. And so he does some calculations to see kind of what's going on. And so he uses some equations to figure out, like based off of like how fast objects are falling, to see what is going on with gravity. So anyway, Andy uses specifically, he gives the specific height of the table and things like that. And then gravity's constant, so it doesn't matter how heavy an object is, it will fall at the same rate. And so I wanted to test it and see if, given the height and the rate of like the acceleration due to gravity that's given, if that's correct using like physics that we know. So anyway, we're gonna test that out real quick and see how it's looking. Hi, I just wanted to check in really quick on where I am in Project Hail Mary. So I've been reading for the last 2 days. I'm at page like 132, like here-ish. And so far I still like really love this book. It's great. I think it will honestly be like what I consider like kind of a 5-star book, just because I really enjoy the science. Like, I enjoy science fiction that has a lot of science in it. One thing I do want to say that's like in here that I don't think it'll give things away too much, but the book goes between Ryland Grace having these flashbacks to his memories and kind of giving more context to what's going on Earth, and then also where he is now in space trying to fix the problem. And so in one of the flashbacks, he's talking to the person who's kind of in charge of getting all these countries to collaborate and share resources so that they can send out this Project Hail Mary. And so she's a very interesting character, and I do like her character. And she at one point just says that because of the things she's doing and the decisions she's having to make, once Project Hail Mary leaves her, she will no longer be in charge of everything. But once that happens, she's like, they're probably going to try me for abuse of power and breaking all these laws and all these things where, when it comes to the end of the world, sometimes hard decisions are made. And so she's making a lot of hard decisions, and she realizes that eventually she is going to have to deal with the consequences of that. And so she's like, yeah, I'll probably get thrown in jail for the rest of my life. And what really stuck out to me was the way she was like, but at the end of the day, if that's what it takes to save humanity, I will do it all again. And so it's just, I do really like that, there's this acknowledgement of like, yes, there are corrupt people in this world, but there are also just these good people who just want to help others, who just want to make things right, who want to do the best they can. And obviously that's not going to work perfectly in every scenario. Like, hard decisions do have to be made. And sometimes, it's not perfect, but at the end of the day, she will do whatever she can to help. So I thought that was really nice. I did like that part of the book. I will probably check back in when I finish this. Hopefully that will be today. I have a few other things that I might work on kind of in this video. So like, I'll go ahead and just show you. I recently finished this like embroidery. Sorry, dropping things. I finished this, and I want to, it's on like a large piece of fabric. I do want to make this into a bag, so I might also do that in this video. We will see. But yeah, I got this finished. I think it's really cute. It's not perfect, but I guess that's what happens when I make things instead of professionals. I finished Project Hail Mary like 2 days ago. I just didn't have time to film. But I just wanted to can I say my last thoughts on the book? It was really good. Like overall, I think this may be like one of my favorite books of all time. I did really love at the end, like we're able to see the character growth of our main character really well, where it's like certain decisions he made at the beginning versus certain decisions that he makes at the end. You're able to see how he grew as a character. So I really appreciate the fact that we had such a wonderful dynamic character and we were able to see how he learned and how he grew and stuff. I will say though, at the end, like kind of that last chapter that's more like an epilogue type of just to give you closure, it did feel because throughout the book there was a lot of like we went to a lot of detail on all the science and how everything worked. But at the end, it kind of just felt like, and we did this, and it was just kind of fine. And it doesn't go into quite as much detail, which is kind of annoying. Like, it just, I didn't super like that, but it was fine at the same time, just since, I don't know, it's like the end, and you're kind of just wanting to almost be done. But overall, I think it was really fine. Do I necessarily believe that the ending is technically possible? No, not really. But also I liked it anyway. So that's the end of my thoughts on that. So now we'll be moving on to reading The Martian. Hopefully, I'll get this done a little bit faster than I got Project Hail Mary done. Unfortunately, I had some other stuff that I needed to get done. Anyway, it may take me a while to get through this, but hopefully not too long. We're going to be starting The Martian. Hi, sorry, I just wanted to hop on real quick and give a few thoughts on The Martian. I'm only on page 82 so far, but I had a lot of thoughts. So basically, like I said before, the premise of this is that an astronaut named Mark Watney gets stranded on Mars. There's a sandstorm. The rest of the crew goes. He ends up getting injured. They think he dies, and then it turns out he's not dead. So a few things just from the get-go is I think maybe earlier when I said like I feel like I should start with The Martian. So like out of all the Andy Weir books, start with The Martian because it's his debut novel. But then I obviously didn't. I do think maybe I should have really started with The Martian though, just because Project Hail Mary is like a bit more well written because obviously like he's had some experience and he's grown as an author, and so it was a bit more well written than The Martian. Obviously, The Martian is still like really good and is very impressive, but it's just not, at least in my mind, it's not quite as good as Project Hail Mary was. But anyway, that aside, this is still a really good book and I do still really enjoy it. This one swears a lot more than in Project Hail Mary. Like, sorry, I can't help but kind of compare the main character of Project Hail Mary to Mark Watney in The Martian, where Ryland Grace was like a school teacher, and so because of that, he's like, oh, I can't swear in front of like 10-year-olds. And so he says a lot of things like, oh, holy moly, gosh darn it, and stuff. And then Mark's out there just dropping the F word all the time, which, in all fairness, if I were stranded on Mars, I probably would not be using the cleanest language either because I'd be upset. But I don't know, maybe that's just me. But anyway, that is all that I have for now. I have finally finished The Martian. It took me like 2 weeks, which was more than I was planning on, but unfortunately, I got a bit busy. But anyway, here we are now. I have now finished. I loved this book. It was great. Sorry, we're 2 for 2 on I loved these books. I think Andy Weir did a great job researching and getting all the information so that he could write as accurate a book as possible, even though it's fiction. So you had where, he knew things about Mars, he knew about the orbits, he knew how NASA kind of works, and he was able to make this a very realistic book, which I really appreciated. Other thing I will say was one of the critiques that I have heard of this book before reading it was that like it's very much like Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong in this book. And so because of that, I kind of expected to get a little annoyed with how often things would go wrong. So like I expected every single little thing to go wrong at least once. But at least for me, and maybe it was because I went in with the expectation of I'm going to get annoyed with how often things are going wrong, I actually ended up being kind of surprised that things, not necessarily every single little thing went wrong, and there wasn't a catastrophe like every single page. So, like, obviously, a lot of things go wrong. Like, I mean, the whole start of the book is something really major went wrong. But I don't know, like they were able to problem solve and not it didn't feel like, oh, the author's just trying to do absolutely everything to kill this character. It was, we're in this situation and these are the kinds of things that would go wrong. And this is how you would fix it. And this is maybe how you would try to fix it. And it might still go wrong a little bit. Also, while reading this book, I like chuckled quite a few times. Like, there were like, it's not a funny book. Like, the premise of the book is pretty serious, but the characters have some sass that it was really funny to me, where they would just like say things or they would just like be sarcastic and stuff. And I was like, that was kind of funny. But anyway, I finished this. I will now be starting on Artemis. So hopefully that one doesn't take me 2 weeks, but we'll see. So we are about this far through. So I have like, I don't know, it's probably like 100-ish, give or take, maybe 30 pages. I'm really bad at estimating. Anyway, I'm like 3/4 of the way through the book. I meant to do this a little bit earlier, but I didn't. So here we are now. But anyway, this book has been really good. I will say, for one thing, it uses a lot less science details. So like where the Martian and Project Hail Mary like talked about very specific scientific equations and things like that, this one kind of glosses over it a little bit more. Like it's still there. We just don't care about all the details anymore. And I don't know if that was like an intentional thing that Andy Weir did, because this main character isn't a scientist. She's more like a tradesman. Her father was a welder, things like that. And so she doesn't really like, she is like a genius. So she's kind of like, I could know it if I wanted to. I just don't. But anyway, there's far fewer heavy science details that were in the other two books, which I don't know, that this it makes it almost like you focus a bit more on the plot, which is kind of nice. It's still very clearly a sci-fi. It's just very focused on other things. I think it's really good. I should be done soon. Once I like really got into it, I really started like getting through this pretty fast, because I think yesterday I was probably like maybe around like here, and that's what I read yesterday, which maybe isn't that much, but I was supposed to be doing like homework and stuff. But this is good. I will let you know my full thoughts when I finish completely. All right. Well, welcome to the end of this, because I just finished Artemis, and again, I really loved this one as well. So 3 for 3 on these were really good books that for the books that I kind of like to read, this fits it very well. Last thoughts on Artemis. I will say, initially, I had a hard time getting into this book. Like, I think I had a hard time kind of getting over that hump of, if you live in a colony on the moon has less gravity, and thus, if you live there long term, you won't really be able to just go back to Earth. This book acknowledges it, but I had a hard time getting into it, knowing that, like, I think it's just, if I were in this world where there is a colony on the moon, I wouldn't want to live there, because it would bother me a lot knowing I can't just like go to Earth. Whereas like here, I can take a flight to London and the gravity in London isn't gonna kill me or make my body hurt or anything. And so because of that, I had a hard time relating to our main character who lives on the moon, loves being on the moon, and never wants to leave. I don't know. That was more just a me thing though. Once I got over that, like once I really started reading this book, like I read it pretty fast. Like it picks up. Also, it's a heist, and heists are pretty like just inherently exciting. It was a very good, exciting book. Um, Also, the world building was really great. Like it was impressive that so I feel like we were trying to, and maybe this is just the way I'm interpreting it, but we were trying to be true to our main character where she's not a scientist and thus we're not going to be as sciency. She was, and so with the world building, we didn't go into quite as many of those like sciencey details of like atmospheric pressure, keeping the bubbles that people live in on the moon like at that atmospheric pressure, and like the exact quantities of oxygen and nitrogen and hydrogen and all that stuff that was in the air. Like we didn't go into those details as much, which was totally fine. Like they're not really important to the story, and I think it was kind of nice that we focused a bit more on the story instead of with like the other two. We talked a lot about the science, which they were important details to the story, but like we didn't maybe necessarily need all of them. But since our main characters were scientists, it made sense for them to be there. Whereas here, our main character wasn't a scientist, and so it makes sense that they're significantly less. But on the other aspects, like it's not like, oh, because our character isn't a scientist, we're using that as an excuse to just like not have these details. Like it was clearly like still well thought out, still well planned out. It's just we weren't given all those details because our main character wouldn't have cared to give them. Overall, I would recommend this book to just about anyone. Same with the other two, though. I think if I had a friend who was like asking for a recommendation and I knew they weren't necessarily like as into science, I think this is the one I would recommend. Whereas, like, if I knew they loved science, I would recommend the other two. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I did really enjoy this. So, thanks for coming.